Okay, so Unit 5, Lesson 5. Linear equations in standard form. So this is the third form we're going to learn. So there are three different forms. We had slope-intercept, point-slope, and now standard form. So standard form is the form of a linear equation where the variables for x and y are on the same side of the equation, and there is a constant on the other side. So a, b, and c are real numbers. A and b both are not 0. So a number times x plus a number times y equals a constant. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about x and y intercepts of a graph and how to find them. So I'm going to do a little bit of a drawing here. I'm going to draw a line. And it's x and y intercepts. So this point right here is the y intercept. This point is the x intercept. So from what we know about points, a y-intercept has an x value of 0. An x-intercept has a y value of 0. So for us to find x and y intercepts, let's just first find the x-intercept. I'll go through the process of that. So to find the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y to this equation. So this equation becomes 3x plus 4 times 0 equals 24, which really is 3x equals 24. So the x-intercept would be 8. Okay? That's how you find the x-intercept of a line. Y-intercept is the exact opposite. Plug in 0 for x. So to find the y-intercept, 3 times 0 plus 4y equals 24. 4y equals 24, so y equals 6. So this line crosses the x-axis at 8, crosses the y-axis at 6. So if you're trying to find an intercept, you substitute 0 in for the other variable. If it's the x-intercept, plug in 0 for y. If it's the y-intercept, plug in 0 for x. Example 2 kind of does a better job of this because we actually get to see the graph. So first I'm going to find the x-intercept. So the x-intercept is when y is 0. So 2x equals 20. Our x-intercept is 10. So I'm just going to graph a point. 10, 0. Y-intercept. Substitute 0 for x. 2 times 0 plus 5y equals 20. 5y equals 20. Y equals 4. So my y-intercept is 4. So it's the point 0, 4. And the main reason for this is if we have 2 points, we can draw a line. And I'll do my best to draw a line that's somewhat straight. And that line should really extend all the way. Ooh, that was bad. But you get the picture. Okay. So it's got to go through both points. So finding the x-intercept, finding the y-intercept. The math isn't really that bad. Just got to remember which variable to substitute 0 for. Next example talks about graphing horizontal and vertical lines. So if you have just a variable equal to a constant, you got to know whether it's a vertical or horizontal line. So this equation x equals 3. This means this equation only has x values that are 3. So this 3 represents an x-intercept. So this is a vertical line. And I want you to write vertical. So x equals a constant is a vertical line. Y equals 3, this represents a y-intercept of 3. This equation only has y values of 3. So this is horizontal. So an x equals a constant is vertical, a y equals a constant is horizontal. Example 4, I'm actually going to skip. I have a reason for that, mostly because we're virtual. I would normally cover this if we were in class. If you want me to explain that one to you separately, I will be happy to, but I'm not going to quiz you on that. All right, so that one is a pretty obscure example. It doesn't show up a lot, so I'm not going to focus on that one. So I'm going to skip right to example 5. Because example 5 is going to be a little more applicable to our next unit. So in example 5, it says, a media download store sells songs for $1 each and movies for $15 each. You have $60 to spend. Write and graph an equation that describes the number of songs and movies you can purchase for $60. So, got to find the intercepts and then use them to graph. So the graph kind of shows us, but in these context problems, remember, when we write an equation, we always want to define those variables. So I would say x, okay, is going to be the number of songs. I'm going to define that as my, number of songs bought. Y, I'm going to define as the number of movies I buy. Number of movies. So to write this equation in standard form, write an equation of how much money I spend on songs and movies. So this is going to be a total. So there's going to be two things added together. Now to represent the total amount I spend on songs, I would take $1 for each song times the number of songs. So 1x. Now, 1x is really just x. So if you want to write 1x, great. I'm just going to write it as x. I know that means 1x. That total plus the total I spend on movies. So the amount of money I spend on movies is represented by $15 per movie times y movies. So this expression represents the money I spend on movies and songs. So if I spend $60, this total is equal to 60. So this is my equation. I'll write that a little bit better. Now the next step is to find our x and y intercepts. So to find my x-intercept, I would plug in 0 for y. So this would be x plus 15 times 0 equals 60. So this represents, x equals 60. So this means if I buy 0 movies, I could buy 60 songs, which makes sense. If I have $60, $1 per song, I could buy 60 songs. For my y-intercept, this is basically saying if I buy 0 songs, how many movies can I buy? If I buy 0 songs, I could buy 4 movies. Okay? So those are kind of the extremes of what I could buy. So I'm going to graph my x-intercept of 60. Actually graph it. X-intercept of 60. Y-intercept of 4. Okay? So if I think about this proportionally, down 4, right 60, I would have a point in the middle that's at 30.32. So if I'm going to graph this equation, now, I am not going to extend past the y-axis or the x-axis, because then I'd be getting into negative values, and negative values don't make sense for number of movies or number of songs. So this line tells us the combinations of movies and songs we can buy when we have $60 to spend. So if I had $40 to spend, this line would be different. If I had $100 to spend, this line would be different. But it's us understanding how to write a model and how to graph that model. So now I'd say you're ready for some practice on this topic, and then the quiz will come after that. The quiz and a review will come after that.